Cool. Let's do it.
All right, we are recording.
Hello.
Hey. How you doing, Nick?
Great, man. Just going through big transitions.
What are some of the biggest transitions you're going through at the moment?
I dropped keto, which is a diet of basically straight meat and cheese. And I adopted a fully plant-based diet. And
wow.
Yeah, just went cold turkey, man. Ripped off the Band-Aid of environmental degradation and unethical eating and just went full plant-based. And it's been an interesting transition, to say the least.
How does your body feel?
There was a moment 2 days after I made the switch where I had definite crash. Because I went from like eating literally 0 carbs and sugar to all of a sudden loading myself with tons of carbs and sugar. So I had like a vegan burger 2 days after because it's a bunch of shit I couldn't have. It's bread and potatoes and all these other things, and my body just completely rejected it. It honestly felt like I just wanted to lay down on the floor and go to sleep.
Damn.
But I've been well, because it's also like you think you're going plant-based, you can eat whatever the fuck you want. Here's the thing with keto, right? You can eat whatever the fuck you want. I can have cheese, I can have meat, I can have anything in the world and as much of it as I want, as long as it's low carb, and the body is still going to burn fat. So my body was very trim and ripped, but my heart rate is very high because I'm having a bunch of saturated fat and cholesterol.
For sure.
So, it's this interesting thing where you go plant-based, you can't really pull that shit off. It's not like you just eat as much fucking bread and carbs and everything. You can be a fat vegan very easily. So I've been gaining a ton of weight, which I know has been good. Although my heart rate is already, after a week of doing this, my resting heart rate was from about 73 to now a 61 beats per minute.
Wow. In a week?
Yeah. In a week. It's that quick.
Wow.
Even when I sleep, it used to be about 55 and now it's down to 43. So, that was the thinking behind the transitions. I wanted to lower my heart rate for deeper meditation.
Wow. And have you found deeper meditation since this transition?
100%.
Wow.
Yeah. There's not even a question. Everything, it comes down to, because you talk about the state of samadhi, right? Which is where you stop breathing and your body enters into this sort of very natural dance with the divine. And normally that comes through your heart rate dropping below 10 beats per minute. And it can get to the point where the person stops breathing entirely. Their energy comes from this external place and pumps to their body. And it's called a state of samadhi. The only way to get to levels like that is through plant-based eating. If you're having meat, carbs, highly saturated fats, it's possible, but it's just not easy. So I feel more well-rounded. I feel much less guilty about the food I eat. And it's also way easier to eat. Like I've got, you just get the vegetarian shit. It's so easy.
Yeah. And how's your mental acuity, mental sharpness?
I'll be real with you.
Same or?
No, definitely not. When you're in ketosis, you feel like you just want to hunt. I feel like a fucking animal when I'm in ketosis.
Yeah.
All right.
Like you're on a bit of acid.
I don't know about that. Wait, what is it like when you're on LSD? Wait, what?
No, I mean, dude, for me, when I've been in deep states of ketosis, there's been this like almost as if I've taken a microdose of LSD. Just like this.
A microdose, not like a macro dose.
No. Okay. Like a microdose in terms of you're just kind of zinging at it like you're kind of, I don't know. But yeah, sorry, continue with this hunting.
Well, I guess
that's the same
LSD.
thing as hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not. What do you mean? Like when I'm on LSD, I'm like one with the world. I want to hug something. I'm not gonna go fucking hunt an animal. I can't run when I'm on acid. Oh well. All right. Well,
Dude, you
we've
can
never
run
taken
while
LSD together.
you can run while you're on a microdose of acid.
You can do a lot in a microdose. I'll give you that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway, point is, when I'm on ketosis, I feel like I could hunt an animal and kill it with my bare hands. Like I feel that attuned to the world around me, and like I can work to infinity. Um, I think most of my problems focusing back in the day came from carbohydrates. Now, with that said, I don't feel like I'm in a place right now where I have to live that way anymore.
Mm,
Like point blank, the need for my output from a raw being turned on standpoint, from a mental, just being like mentally in tune with the world around me 24/7 is just no longer necessary. So with the switch to plant-based, I've been more deliberate about scheduling, saying this is when I work, this is when I don't work. And I've been much more, I feel like a more holistically balanced person.
mm,
Um, Even if I'm putting on a fuck ton of weight because I'm no longer on keto. So
right.
I'm also learning portion control. I'm learning about, all the things my body needs outside of keto and eating like iron, B12, some of those things. And it's been pretty good. Like I feel fine. I only had that one crash. And besides that, I've been feeling great.
Nice. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, have you ever seen this docu series called Down to Earth on Netflix with Zac Efron?
No.
So
What's it
there's this
about?
one. There's well, it's Zac Efron, but
I didn't know you were a
it's
Zac Efron fan.
no, no, I'm not. But
Right. Okay. I mean,
but I
it's
guess
a shame, man.
after this show, like I am a Zac Efron fan. I think he's a pretty rad. I just never knew Zac Efron. Like
Mm,
I just knew him from High School Musical, you
right.
know. But like this show really kind of gives insight into who he is as a person, as an individual, and it's about his journey of wanting to bring some good into the world. And so he teams up with this health guru, I forget his name, and they go to these different places around the world and dive into what it means to live sustainably. And there's this one
Mm,
episode in Sardinia, in Italy,
mm.
where it's all about what do you call people that live past 100? There's a name for it.
Some old people.
Yeah, yeah, old people.
Yeah.
So they're
Centennials? I don't know.
something like that. But Centennials is
Yeah.
the generation. There's a name for it. Maybe it's Centennial. Um,
Mm.
so they go to Sardinia and they have you heard of blue zones?
It's like, isn't that the areas of people who they just live for a fucking really long time?
Exactly. So Sardinia is a blue zone, and then you have all these other blue zones around the world. And what they found is people that live in these blue zones, they don't actually, in Sardinia, they were eating very high carb diets, very relaxed lifestyles. Um, even man, I read this Malcolm Gladwell book, and one of the case studies was around these Rosetto people. Um,
Mhm.
and that they came from Italy, they moved to Pennsylvania, settled in, and they had super long lifespans and super healthy hearts. And they would
Mhm.
smoke, they would drink, they would eat pizza, all the stuff. But yeah, basically, if you watch that episode, the people who run the Blue Zone project, they're talking about how the high fat, high protein diets is not is it like the blue zones are showing that that's not the way to go for longer lives, for longevity.
Well, I have a
um
theory around why I don't think it has anything to do with the diet, frankly.
mm,
Well, it does.
I
Like the
agree. I think it's about
health of a
lifestyle.
person. Exactly, man. When you're getting into your 80s and 90s and even to your hundreds, right? And you still have community around you. You can see 6 generations of your family. You don't want to go. I think everyone gets to pick when they want to go. Like you can see the life in someone's eyes kind of drain, and they're ready to take a step out. And I feel like when you have that much embedded family, in the community, in like not only your direct family but your extended circles around you 24 hours a day, it's a lot of motivation to live.
For
right?
sure.
You're going to
For
choose,
sure.
you choose to stay longer.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it gives you sense of purpose, a sense of liberty, a sense of life force and life meaning, right?
Mm,
And yeah, it's very interesting to see what this next generation of older folks, or kind of how we operate as older folks when we transition into that life stage, because I think we've, and the generation below us as well, have done a terrible job at keeping community, a terrible job at
mm,
prioritizing community. you know
right.
we've become so driven by other factors that we haven't really been the best at being community driven generations. So
Mm.
I'm interested to see how that kind of plays out when we transition into older life stages.
I think there is some mass awakening around that. Like, I think we recognize that we kind of fucked up,
Mm,
especially the awkward phase that we went through, and going from having no phones to having phones, creating online communities that just don't fit the bill. You know, I do believe that there's so many of my friends who have this dream of starting these eco villages. Everybody
yeah.
kind of wants to go off the grid, throw up some land ships, and revisit the roots. And even luckily over the weekend here in Portugal, I got I got to actually visit one of these places. Guy who actually
Where'd you
built
go?
it's a place called Gaia, just south of Lisbon, about an hour outside the city.
Wow.
And he had 10 land ships, all sustainable tree houses, former dentist, got a chance to meet him. He also did a giant yoga shala where we held an ecstatic dance party. Not the most
What?
COVID friendly. Yeah, not the most COVID friendly, but we did it. Immediately got tested negative. And it was just an amazing experience, man. Like, it doesn't take much to return to roots and to throw up one of these villages in such a way that will satisfy most of what you're looking for in a modern community. I mean, there's even, like,
Yeah.
I was sitting outside the circle, everyone was doing a breathwork class after the dance, and I had this vision of me being an old man in one of these communities, being 80, 90 years old, watching these kids do the things that make them feel youthful and alive, right? And I really think that's our natural state of being, is in very close communities, maximum 200 people, with these centralized spaces that we all share, and the young people can be young in and the old people can be old in, right? It's a
Mm,
shared space that
mm.
we kind of are actively losing touch with through gentrification.
Yeah, for
um,
sure. For sure.
people don't, you think about the word gentrification, the real definition of it is the loss of generations.
Mm,
When you only have one generation of families live in a given area, rather than 10, 20 generations going through that specific area, so you have
right.
less diversity between the OGs, the original gangsters, and the young guns.
Right.
When everything
Yeah,
becomes so
yeah.
young gun focused, I think it loses a lot of that, a lot of the benefits of what happens with that ancestral diversity.
Mm. Now, on that, and on this topic of community, have you felt differences in how you experience community when transitioning from the US to Europe? Because you recently made that transition.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Lisbon
Mm,
is one of the catalysts of human civilization, right? There's always been something in Lisbon. So, the places that I live, I'm like a couple blocks off, like the main city center. It's so historically diverse. And even I know my neighbors. I'm learning the language of Portuguese.
nice.
The other day, I went out with my neighbor. She's in her 70s. We went out for coffee and sat there chatting for 2 hours. Right.
Nice.
And I'm sure that can happen in some places in America, but normally in the context of big American cities, you're with people your own age.
For
And
sure.
it almost feels like, and the city's really going through a massive transition right now. You got a lot of foreign money coming in, buying up big buildings, that's gentrifying the area. People are higher income, but for the time being, there's still a lot of that diversity that can be
Mm,
taken advantage of.
mm,
So you can't really speak to Europe as a whole, but Lisbon specifically, I feel like has a proper balance of what I'm describing of both the young and old. You know,
Right.
um,
And
these
the
spaces that are
interaction
shared.
between, yeah, for sure. For
Yeah, man,
sure.
go grab a coffee for €1 and go pop your ass on a bench in one of these public park areas, and you're gonna strike up some interesting conversation.
That's amazing.
It's great. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying it doesn't exist in America. There's just a lot more barriers to entry when it comes to Americans just chatting one another up, you know?
For sure. I think that's one thing, right? It's just Americans chatting each other up. I think another thing is this generational gap that, you
Mm,
know, there aren't many shared spaces. And I think we tend to, in the US, silo older people. You know, we try to,
mm,
you know, cluster them all together and move them to places, right?
mm,
Rather than actually valuing their experience and wisdom and life as integrated members of the, you know, of the whole. Like, I don't think we do a very good job at integrating the elderly, and we don't do a very good job at creating those shared spaces between young and old, which I do think is a huge missed opportunity.
mm.
A huge missed
Yeah.
opportunity. You know, just like the wisdom and the experience and the knowledge and the history that they bring. You
Mm,
know, um, yeah, and I do even think that now is perhaps more important than ever, because I think the generational gap is widening.
mm.
Right, I think 100 years ago, you take an 18-year-old and a 70-year-old, I think they'd have a lot more to talk about than today if you take an 18-year-old and a 70-year-old. Right, it's like the gap has widened so much that, you know, by not making a conscious effort to integrate, I mean, we might be really losing a lot of valuable stuff.
I feel as modern communities, we lack mentorship,
Mm,
deliberate mentorship in the form of our elders being able to pass down, teach us things, because your attention is being diverted in so many ways, right?
yeah,
You're not going on Instagram or Facebook and following people in their 70s and 80s, right?
yeah.
Like you're going to be following some young guns who reflect the lifestyle you want to live. So everything has been kind of consolidated into an echo chamber where I say I want this and it gives you that naturally, right? I don't want to hear about my 70-year-old uncle's fucking political views, and these algorithms respect that, and it feels like everywhere we go, we become accustomed to an echo chamber of I want to live somewhere with young people who look like me, who I can chat with about modern things, and in that you lose so much. Even
Mm.
that woman my neighbor, she was born and raised in Angola and illegally immigrated to Portugal when she was 15. She left her home and traveled Europe as kind of a gypsy on the back of trains and went from that to now being, somebody who has got property all over Portugal and has built hundreds of buildings with her husband who's an architect. Like that
Wow,
story arc is something you can't replicate in somebody who's 25 years old and has no experience in the world.
for
um,
sure.
and it's also interesting you find the commonality, like we both have a lot of common ground in our pursuit of spirituality. Even a lot of the mystics that I've begun to study very recently, she's intimately familiar with because she went to India and actually sat with some of these OGs.
Wow.
It's like you think you have more in common, there's more intrigue than I think you can possibly give credit for. You might see this woman and see a little old lady walking down the street, but take a moment to invite them out to coffee and you'll find there's a lot more depth than what you might realize.
Mm, mm. Yeah, that is so true. You know, this brings up a lot of thoughts around ageism,
Mm,
and just how ageist of especially this country, I think in the US, right? It's very ageist, and
mm,
ageism is so prevalent, right? And it's like, I often think, how can we tap into the immense value that the elderly bring in a more
mm,
meaningful way? You know, how can we actually foster, how can we leverage their brilliance in more ways? Because instead of pushing away, right? How do we create more of those connections like the one that you had? You know,
I, I feel like it's just a matter of being deliberate.
yeah,
Be deliberate and offer as many opportunities as possible for these sort of integrations.
mm,
Um, I feel like with anything else, like you got to make a conscious effort to tap into our local resources, and I guarantee the best knowledge and thinking around you comes in the form of people who are much older than you, and also go into that with the knowledge that they can become your friends. Right? I've developed very deep friendships with people who are 3, 4 times my age.
for
It's
sure,
something that anybody can do. So stop, don't see them as like, oh, this like pity this old woman. It's like, no, like really take the time to get to know them and
for
discover
sure.
all the bounty of wisdom that can come towards you.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it goes both ways, right? I think older and younger, right? And really seeing people as people, right? Instead of seeing kids as kids and elderly as elderly, it's like there's so many ways to connect. You know, I have such deep friendship and connection with my niece and nephew, right? Who are 5 years old, right? It was like those are my homies,
Mm.
like those are my homies.
Yeah.
um, and I think if we really take that, be deliberate in that approach of treating people as people, could lead to some interesting territory. Um, dude, I'm looking at this list, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think we have some pretty interesting things on here. Um,
Pop them out.
yeah, yeah, I think one that's calling me is that second one, love and fear as universal drivers.
Yeah. So we got a list of all the ideas around podcasts we want to talk about. Um, well, I feel like it's something that, even we're talking about the ageism thing, we all share these things, these loves,
Mm,
these fears, this fuel to make you do something or to make you turn away from it, right? And it's something that it kind of supersedes generations, and everyone can see. Even animals. We kind of deal in this world of something that you feel called towards, or something that you feel propelled away from.
mm,
It's kind of like that. The universal forces at play that got me thinking about it one day.
mm,
Um, yeah. What
mm.
what 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 calls to you from it? Out of
I think,
curiosity.
yeah, I think how everything can somehow be I think, these would be the two underlying, if you really strip things down, right? I see those as the two underlying poles or poles, right?
Hmm.
Of love and fear. And I think, I was making the connection the other day. Cam and I were talking about abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset. And I think that's, perhaps a very contextualized way of looking at love and fear, right? And it's in a manifestation. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I don't know why it called to me. I
Well,
think
I
that
think I
that
think
was
the
just
big
the connection.
challenge is, yeah, the big challenge I believe is when you are met with one, recontextualizing into the other,
Mm,
right? Like whenever I'm
yeah.
presented with something that like I feel very fearful of, like something happened
Tran
at my day job where it was like, yeah, I want you to learn this new system and learn how to do X, Y, and Z. And I was like, oh God, that doesn't sound like me at all. Like da, 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 da. All these things start going off. And when I felt that fear pop up, I reposition it. It's like, oh, this is a new skill set. I'm going to learn this something I'm really interested in. Da, da, da. And I now turned in from a place of love and a place of um, abundant thinking of all the things I'll learn and be able to do once I dive into this new subject matter. Versus, I really don't want to do this. Why are they asking me to it? It's not my job. It's not this. Now, here's the reality situation. I'm still going to do the thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I going to come in from a fearful pissed off, just place of negativity, or am I going to come from it a place of positivity, abundance, and building? Right?
Mm,
It's still happening either way.
mm,
So I feel it becomes a very powerful skill set of when you're met with fear, you're not responding with fear.
for
You're not
sure.
responding of, oh, that triggers me, I'm going to run away from that thing. No, no,
Yeah.
no, no. You respond, wow, that's triggering me. Let me dive into this a bit. And
Yeah,
it feels like there's a lesson to be learned because of the fear that's being triggered. And it takes someone who's extremely mindful to do this,
for
right?
sure.
So it's like that both fuels are always available to you in
For
any
sure.
given situation. And you get to pick which one is going to drive the conversation or drive your action and motivation.
Yeah. And dude, this has been actually funny enough. This has been coming up a lot for me recently.
Mm,
This concept of transforming fear. How do you take that energy and channel it differently? Channel it as love, transform it into X, right? And I think it is such a powerful tool if you're able to approach situations like that.
mhm,
It builds such a sense of resilience, right? When you're able
mhm,
to really channel in a different way. Because I do think underneath it all, right, this underlying intelligence is love based. It's love driven, right? Um,
mhm.
and maybe fear is a yeah, I don't know. But yeah, this has been popping up for me recently about this transforming of fear,
Well, the first step
right?
is
Leaning
recognizing it.
into it. Yeah.
Right. The first step is when you feel it popping up and you feel that contraction. There's only two movements. You can feel a contraction where you kind of feel closed into the corner, or you're gonna feel expansive where you feel like your fucking heart's gonna bust out of the room.
Right.
Right. When you feel that contraction, you have to be very cognizant of it. Right. You can't allow it to take hold of you. They can't let the fear take the driver's seat. Right. And the truth is, especially when we're working with other people, right, that can kind of take over very quickly.
Mm,
So when I feel that in another individual, I'll be extremely patient. Takes like levels of patience. The truth is, they have to come to their own sort of recontextualization. It can't be forced and it cannot be rushed. It takes a lot of patience and a lot of work to for them to be able to recontextualize into something. Hey, I'm willing to turn this into something positive and something to work on, something to approach in a very love and abundant way. Right.
mm,
So I think the process is different for the individual who's like cognizant of their emotions versus working with other people who are maybe not so cognizant of it.
right.
And I think it's important to take a step back and wait for when they ask for help.
Right.
Right. If they ever feel triggered, it's like I was always in situations because I had this was in a relationship and there's a lot of trauma, right, around a lot of things, and I became impatient with it. I would try and fix things very deliberately and maybe move things faster than they could have moved. And I think it's really important to always be mindful that this sort of shift takes practice and something that the individual has to work through, and you're there to hold space for that journey, not
Mm,
to fix the problem. It's not problem solution oriented. It's more so I'm gonna, if you should ask for help, I'm willing to provide it. In the meantime, I'm gonna hold space for however you're feeling. And very
right.
importantly, don't let yourself take that fear on. Um,
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
from, so I think it's different for the individual versus in a setting where you're holding space for somebody.
Yeah, for sure. That's such a good point because you need to be able to turn to someone's fear and turn to someone's suffering and and really be open facing it, but not take it
Mm,
on. That's
right.
not yeah. And
I, I
that's
physically
holding
wash
space.
myself. Yeah, I wash myself. I'll literally imagine picking up some fucking energy out of the earth and I'll wash it over my body.
Mm,
I'll just
mm,
do that as many times as I need to in order to wash myself if I feel like I need it. This can
mm,
happen like in your partnership, it can happen in a household. You walk down the street, you get a light, you get a look from someone that doesn't feel right. You're always welcome to take some of that love and like wash yourself clean of it. It's a good
Yeah.
practice to get in the habit of.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
This kind of brings up this thought of holding space that I actually made a video on the other day, because I think it's
Mm,
not something that, it's something I feel like most people haven't heard of, that concept of
mm,
hold what it means to hold space, and
yeah.
just the immense value that you bring in being a container, and
Mm,
in really holding space, right? And
yeah.
there's so much value in that. And I think people don't necessarily think of space as something that they can provide or something to be provided, you
Mm,
know? Um, but I think that is probably the single most effective thing that we can do in those situations that you're describing, right? In terms of, because you mentioned the two, it's different when someone is recognizing it versus when someone is not cognizant of it, right? And I think in the case
mm,
where someone's not cognizant of it, I mean, something like simply holding space can be the catalyst to having them recognize and become cognizant of those patterns and those thought forms and those emotions,
yeah.
you know?
A big part of it is leading by example without fixing.
Mm,
It's
yes.
sometimes
Yeah.
it's really important not to um, aim to like. There's three kinds of listening, right?
Break it
There's
down.
listening to learn. There's listening to fix, and there's listening to win. I repeat that.
Mm,
Listen to
listening to
learn,
learn,
listening to
fix,
fix, and listening to win.
to win.
And it's very easy to cross into the other ones. Okay,
Right.
so
Yeah.
when you're
Yeah.
holding space, see, you got to stay in the learning. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
fully and completely. You're coming from a place of curiosity and you're reflecting their consciousness back at them. That's the goal. You want to
Mm,
become a mirror for their consciousness so they feel heard, they feel understood. And if they should ask specifically, then you can enter into state of fixing with them. But you're still reflecting their consciousness, but they're asking for the fixing, right?
right.
Now, that's not a 1-2 step. It might be like a one, then 100 conversations of learning into that second step. And maybe it never happens, right? But it's our job to love that person fully and completely for who they are today, not for who they can be if fixed, right?
Mm,
And also, you got to be very fucking careful when you're listening to win in these situations. When you feel personally offended by what's being presented in any capacity, that's when like you're gonna very quick communication breakdown.
right.
Um, so it's really important, and that's to me that's holding space. Like I'm here to learn. Should I so in reflecting consciousness, and only when they're ready to fix, I will then reflect the consciousness of fixing. And there's no winning in this. I'm here for you
Mm,
fully and completely, and this is a safe space where I'm here to help you learn, or I'm here to help you fix, and you're going to take a
mm,
lead on that always.
mm. How'd you break down those three, or where was that derived?
I have no idea.
That's okay.
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm sure I got
No,
it from
that's very,
somewhere.
yeah. No, it's very, like, that's powerful. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
but again, it's like you can even forget that part and just reflect their consciousness back at them. Right? You're here without judgment. You're here without opinion, and you're here from a place of perpetual love.
Mm,
And and they'll define their boundaries. They do, but you have to default to I'm not here to fix. I'm not here to win. I'm here to learn and to help you integrate more deeply and fully into whatever you're feeling.
mm, mm. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. There's just so much value in that. So much unrecognized value in that.
People don't
And
think about it. And we're not taught
yeah,
this in
I
school,
know. Yeah,
you know,
dude, how crazy is that?
right? there's so
How
much listening
crazy is that?
happening. Yeah, they're like, listen
Yeah.
to me. What the fuck does it
Yeah.
mean to listen, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're taught how to listen, but nobody teaches you how to listen.
Yeah. That is so bizarre, right? It's like this
Yeah,
education, this structure is premised on you listening and retaining and then regurgitating, but you were never actually taught about the power of listening, the power of
yeah.
hearing, the power of seeing someone.
Mm.
You know, it's wild, and
Well,
it's something
it's a
that's not
pretty
spoken about.
yeah. Oh, it's a
For
pretty
something that's
crazy thought.
powerful. Mm,
It's a pretty crazy thought when you begin to turn off your senses, because that's what's happening here, right? When you are reflecting consciousness back at somebody in your presence, you're actively turning yourself off, right? You're turning off
mm,
your mind. You're turning off your feelings of judgment, emotion. You're turning off your triggers momentarily, and you're giving them your full loving capacity. And it's something that you don't have to get to that point, but you know, it is possible to just be that bastion of love. Like you can't say the word love in a school setting, right?
yeah,
Like people don't talk about that. They
I
don't talk
know.
about holding space for your fellow man. And this is the problem with bullying in school, right? Everybody fucking bullies everybody because we don't learn how to treat each other as human beings, right?
Mm,
I think it's become a very it's a big gamble now sending kids to school. I don't think I'll be sending my kids to school.
yeah,
I'm gonna connect them with the best teachers in the world over Zoom or through YouTube or whatever learning platform emerges, and it's all going to be remote learning, and they're going to learn these core human skill sets to the best in the world, which I'm very excited
right.
about.
And what about social interaction?
I believe that I'm going to be living in a place that probably looks a lot like the place I'm living, where this might be it, man. I don't know at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
I'm gonna be real with you. I tried on LA. Granted, it wasn't the best time, but like I just don't know. I don't know about the first world major cities. Um, it's gonna be close knit community, and um, I'm gonna cultivate deep friendships with my community, and I can imagine a world where I'm gonna have a lot of friends, and we're raising our kids together. You
Mm,
know,
hell yeah. Yeah.
I don't think it'll come through the schooling. I think the schooling will. This is what's probably going to happen. The world will transition into you have co-working spaces today. It would not surprise me if we had co-learning spaces as well for kids,
Yeah.
right? And they're all doing their individual coursework, like all the entrepreneurs in the co-working center doing their individual companies. I think it'll be the same thing for learning too, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was having a conversation about that last week.
Yeah.
Around, yeah,
What's
yeah,
the vision you
around,
see for the future of?
yeah. Well, it's just that, so the co-working that we were opening up in Bali is being recontextualized into a co-learning
Actually,
because
oh shit.
because people no one's coming in on social and tourist visas, but
Right.
you have parents that are on the island, expat parents, right, that have their kids and not satisfied with the school system. So it's like, okay, how do we recontextualize this
Mhm.
space to kind of explore these new models of education? um, yeah, I think that's the way it's heading. That's the way it has to head. I think the traditional school systems are just not built to handle any. It's just not designed well. The school system that we currently have was designed for the industrial revolution.
Right.
But yeah, co-learning, I think that has to be the next evolution of this, because I think homeschooling is tough. It's tough to do. Parents have work, parents have stuff to do, they have their to have to facilitate their children's entire learning journey in that hands-on of a
Mm.
way, one-on-one, is, I think, less desirable than a co-learning model.
Well, the other thing is, even if you're helping a student, you don't necessarily have to be an expert in the topic. You just got to teach them how to use Google. There's
Yeah,
nothing a kid can't
yeah,
figure out nowadays.
dude. So my dad is heading up the drama department at a high school in Florida. As
Sick.
like, yeah, he just took this gig, and he's like, "Yo, I don't even know what I can like teach kids these days." He's like, I try to tell them something, and it's like they already know it. They have access to all this information.
Yeah. It's interesting because you don't really have to memorize dates in history anymore, right? It's like
Mm,
we should be teaching our kids about emotional intelligence and how to use the internet, right?
yeah,
Teaching them that they can accomplish anything. Not you can't do shit. You got to have a C on this test because you can't really read the questions as fast as other people. You
yeah,
know, it's a pretty crazy thing. Like you think about how all of learning has been consolidated into catering to a very select individual few who are good at test taking, but yet a lot of these people are still stuck in this rut of always needing these sort of someone patting them on the head and telling them they do a good job. I don't think it's a conducive environment for building bold people, for building entrepreneurs, for building people who are comfortable taking big risks and doing and living a holistic, happy life. I think it's actually a deterrent to
yeah,
building your ideal life is going to school.
yeah, yeah. I agree because the whole school system is based on this concept of an average. It's
Right.
based on like we're gonna compare you up against this average, right? And your whole educational career is based on you being compared to some standard that who the fuck even created and does it even exist, right? um
Yeah. You're graded.
yeah, exactly, period, right? You're
Right.
graded. And yeah,
Right.
you're graded. And yeah, what is the role of a teacher today? What is the role of a teacher going to be tomorrow, right? Because now they're no longer the sole holders of information. We live in an
Mm,
information democratized world. We have access to
right.
all the information we could ever need and more. It's like what
Mhm.
is that role of a teacher? What should that be? What does that become? I think is an interesting question to think about because it can't just be,
Well,
you know?
even from the perspective of a parent, it's like, why the fuck am I going to roll the dice sending my kid to school with there's anywhere between 30 to 3,000 of them, right?
Yeah.
In a concentrated environment with like anywhere from 10 to 300 teachers, right? I've never met any of these people before. They don't give a shit about me, and I'm just taking a risk on these like 300 individuals to like provide this service that's going to be institutional to my kid's life. Or I send them to a community of deliberate learners who teach them how to be more fiercely independent, access to the world's teachers, the best people in the world who are the world class subject matter experts, right? And these people teach them how to figure the fuck out on their own, right?
Yes.
That seems a lot more appealing to me.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I think, yeah, that is 100% more appealing, you
Yeah.
know? Um, yeah. Yeah, and I think a big part of it comes down to, because now, I mean, you and I are very familiar with this concept of lifestyle design,
Hmm.
and I think like, how do we integrate that learning at a younger age, right? To really look at life as this modular thing that is able to be shaped and shaped independently, right? And I
Well,
think it goes,
I think kids ask for it. I think they ask for it, but nobody
yeah,
fucking cares,
yeah,
right?
so true.
You've got a kid. My little cousin Joby, he's fucking loves dragons, man. Kid's been coding up dragons in Minecraft for years. But nobody's ever fucking taught him anything about dragons in school. Like if you just taken a moment to sit down with him, like anything revolving around dragons and all the mythology behind them and just the animalistic nature of them, like it's like he has a infatuation with dragons that's never been taught in a school concept. They might brush over it in a book or something, right? But
Yeah,
you could spend a lifetime studying dragons. Like what's the mythology behind them? Like what does that have to do with about human psychology and how it's the combination of the spider, the snake, and the giant, terrestrial beasts, right? It's like there's so much to be explored there, and I would love to just fucking let this kid have a course about dragons for 3 weeks,
Yeah. Hell yeah.
And they're asking for these very specific subject matters. Just take everything your kid talks about and put it on a pie chart, right? You're going to see themes emerge, right? Whatever the themes of those things are, give them that course and let them dive in. Granted, they're not going to move to an island in the middle of nowhere and join a co-working space, but hey, like the kid likes Calvin and Hobbes, let's teach him how to raise his own comics, right?
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
kid likes astral travel and fucking pirates. Let's teach him world history, right? And let's teach him about space and physics. Like these kids are asking for it, and then we trust these institutions, these teachers who are fucking overwhelmed to listen to them. But in reality, we have the power as the leaders in that community to provide them with everything that they want to learn and more. And as the kid's mind changes, you change the curriculum. It should be interchangeable. It shouldn't be something that's fixed for the next fucking 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That system cannot. How does that make sense? How can we treat everyone the same with an 18-year curriculum or however long it is, right? A K through 12 curriculum. How is that possible? Dude, again, funny enough, I think that ties back to ageism. I think that is a manifestation of marginalizing a demographic based on their age. Because like if I want to learn dragons, but you're telling me I need to learn, I don't know, what do kids learn? You're telling me I need to read like some shit I don't want to read. It's like you're kind of subjecting me to doing something that is not really what my calling is. And I think it becomes a bit of a blurry line with kids that young, because it's like, well, are they autonomous? Like parents know what's right, but it's like, I don't know. Kids are people.
I agree.
They know what they want. They have desires. They have needs. They have interests. They have callings.
Well, you get in the habit at a very young age to disengage, right? And you trust these institutions, and we've shown very recently these people don't know what the fuck they're doing. They can't adapt.
Yeah.
Right. You got to you got to listen to your kid. I think there is a course of curriculum. I think the kid should be able to read and do arithmetic. I do believe there's a core set of skills. Everything else can be interchanged though. And I don't know. It's like you're spinning your kid into a little fucking corner of the universe when you send him to school. You should instead empower him. Say, hey, sit in front of this computer. I mean, I think it needs more structure, and I think this needs to be thought out. But giving them access to a proper e-learning platform where you can schedule out their next couple months. There's a feedback loop, so the parents know what's going on, what they've completed, versus what's outstanding and what's expected to be completed over the course of several weeks. And I think you could have a more holistically rounded kid. I mean, teach kids to farm, teaching them psychology, right? How do you listen to somebody, right? Like it's so many things I think you tap into that we're missing, especially with apps, man. Like teach a kid Photoshop and see what they build over the course of a lifetime.
Yeah.
Fuck.
For sure.
So much potential.
I agree. Yeah.
We're very fortunate to live in the time we do, and we need to take advantage of these modern advantages in technologies, modern advancements when it comes to our education system. Otherwise, what's going to happen is your kid's going to waste 18 years, get to college, doesn't know what the fuck he wants to do, and then have this expectation of going to debt, right? Getting a degree that's ultimately useless, right?
Yeah.
Or you can skip all that and just listen to what the fuck the kid wants at a young age and cultivate those interests, right?
Yeah.
Now he's leaning into shit that makes him unique. You don't want to make him like a cog in the machine. You're setting yourself up for failure if you look like everybody else. You want to be very acutely skilled in a very unique niche. The more unique, the better. And the thing is that these are transferable skills. You have a kid who really knows fucking dragons, he's going to really know some other shit too, because he has a depth of interest that can be crisscrossed into other things too. You're not losing anything by not giving the standard curriculum.
For sure.
And fuck college. Fuck the debt. I'm
Yeah.
just saying. That's just gonna
Yeah.
be us getting wiped out in our lifetime. I couldn't be happier
Dude,
about it.
how crazy is the
Yeah,
cost of university degrees in this
right.
country? Like,
And now you're paying the same cost for Zoom classes, right?
I know, which I'm like, yo, I can go on Udacity. I can go on Coursera and get a Harvard
Yeah,
course for free. I can,
yeah,
like, why am I, well, it does not make sense. And you're right. It's such a non-leveraging of our modern tools and opportunities to just
hmm
stick to these centuries old ways of thinking in this
yeah,
context where we have all these methods of learning available to us and all these pathways available to us, that we're going to just stick on this route that was defined in a totally different context. Doesn't
right.
make sense.
hmm Yeah, and you got to always look at, I think, year over year, always look at what is possible today that wasn't possible a year ago. It's a
Yeah.
really important question to ask yourself. And I think
Yeah.
today, what's very possible, thanks to COVID, a lot of people say that ironically, I mean it. Thanks to COVID, you have the opportunity to reinvent education. And I do believe that there's going to be a platform that comes out that caters to kids in a structured manner, as well as parents, integrates them into the learning, that is going to take over as the primary source of uh, um, learning planning for the future.
For sure.
There's going to be huge influx of need for teachers' assistants, one-on-one learning. I mean, dude, even so, I was dyslexic. People thought I was a fucking idiot for my entire life, And then they put me on Adderall. Oh, suddenly he can read. Oh, he's a fucking genius, right?
Yeah.
Like they had to put me on supercharged amphetamines, destroying all my creativity and make me stay up till fucking 5 in the morning for half my life in order for me to fit the mold of what a modern good student looks like.
Wow.
What the fuck is that about? You
Yeah.
know,
Wow.
if someone had just embraced my creativity or just asked me like, what do you like? Oh, I like computers. Oh, well, here's a fucking computer course. Any point in my life, you know how much
Right.
bullshit I would have saved? You know how much
Right.
time I could have saved to actually get to where I am today if someone had just asked
And
and,
held
and
space
had it
for the
not been
answer.
right and not been juxtaposed to fucking bullshit. Not
Yeah.
saying I didn't have a fantastic education. I was extremely fortunate given everywhere I could have went, but like, yeah, I think listen to your kids, people, and provide them with what they're asking for and suspend what you think is right because there's no right way to do things.
Yeah. Wow. Amen. I think that is a perfect place to leave it. I think there was some really powerful stuff coming through around listening to
Yeah.
people. Listening
Yeah.
to people regardless of age, regardless of,
Mm,
actually holding space for what people bring, whether
yeah.
they're elderly, whether they're youth. Um, but yeah, I think beautifully put,
Yeah. Listen in and integrate, people. Been
Yeah.
real. Peace.